The first thing I'm going to do is open up Visual Studio. It's actually already open, but you can go to the Start menu, open it up. But here it is, and I'm going to do a new project, File, New, Project, and I'm going to select a Windows Form application project. A lot of your assignments will be Windows Form applications, and it's good to name your project something meaningful. In this case, I'm going to do a simple Hello World program. So I'll just name my project that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and create a directory for my solution. I'm not going to add it to source control. We're not going to talk about that a lot right now. So click OK, and it will go ahead and create a basic project for me to start with. That project will have in it a single form, and I'm going to manipulate that form to my liking a little bit. You can see the bounding box around it and the sizing markers right there. So you can grab a sizing marker, enlarge your form. You can also change the size of a form using the properties, which if you look over here, here are all the properties. I'm going to rename this. I'm going to use the classic Camelback naming convention, which will start with actually I'm not going to use the classic naming convention. I should use a lowercase h. But here I'm going to FRM to indicate form, and then Hello World, which is Camelback. Lowercase for the first word, and then subsequent words uppercase. So that's lowercase for the F, uppercase for the H, uppercase for the W. It makes it easier to pick up the words and read the information, the communication that's going on there to you or another developer. That is, what is this form going to do? I'm going to go ahead and rename this form as well. Let's see here, properties. Go ahead and save your work early and often. Also test it out early and often. Don't write a lot of code and then try it. Write your code incrementally, particularly at the beginning. You can change properties either here or you can change them at the in the text. Either way allows you to change it. You see here I'm changing the text property, and most controls have a text property. The form has one, and you can see it changes the upper text in the title bar. I'm going to go ahead and rename this form to be consistent with my naming conventions. Again, the Camelback notation, which is lowercase for the first, then uppercase, uppercase. So all I'm going to do with this very simple program is create a message box that comes up. Now here I'm going to take a look. So we have our form, which is a class, but this is also a class, but it's actually going to run the actual program. So here, this is the main method. We'll actually start our form and run it. All C# programs have to be started with a main method. So here I'm going to press start, which is a debug start button, which will open up and start our code. And there we go. We have our main form. Not very exciting yet. It doesn't do anything. I can close it with the X. It's a standard Windows form, so if you're familiar with the minimize and maximize and close, it works just that way. And now we can take a look at the actual text that was generated by the form designer. When we made changes to the form designer, what it actually does is comes in here and adds this text so that it saves basically what you did. You know, it saves it in text form, And then when the compiler runs, this is where it takes the text and generates the intermediate language from it to actually make the changes. The form design is really a convenient way for you to manipulate the form so you can get a visual presentation of it instead of just text. So you can get an idea of what you're building instead of just having a bunch of lines of text. But of course, the compiler, understands text. So in the end, it's always going to convert text over to operation codes. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to create my first control, a button. Now, button is a class. Everything in an object-oriented language is a class. I'll just try to center this. And then I'll go ahead and change. You can see here I have the actual form select. I'm going to select the button. So I'll change the name of this. And remember that a name, this is really, what it's going to be called throughout. So this is how I will refer to this button from now on. So I want to give it a name that's meaningful, that when I use it, it will help me remember what it does. So again, I will start with the lowercase letter button, which helps me know what the control is. There's different beliefs on how you should do your naming conventions. But again, as far as the form of the name, it's going to be the camelback notation, which will be lowercase, and then followed by an uppercase. The uppercase will, again, distinguish the next word to help you read it more easily. It'd be nice if we had spaces, but obviously spaces are difficult for compilers to handle. So we like to have no spaces. So we've called our new button hello, which is somewhat related to what it's going to do. It's going to bring up a message box that says hello. It's a classic hello world, which most programmers do on their first program in a language, just to kind of test it out and figure out how some basic things work, like how to get things to print out to the screen. I'm going to change the text there to hello. Again, many controls have the text property. And here I am just going ahead and changing the text property. I can move the control around manually using the graphic editor. I can change the properties using the properties window. Either one is perfectly fine. Sometimes the properties window is a little more precise. You can size to a specific size and that sort of thing. So now I'm going to create a method. You can see here there's no method in this click. I can actually literally double click here and it will create this message handler for me. Now basically what happens is when this program is running, if I click on the button, this is the code that gets called, right? And what I want to do is I just want to create a message box. So Google's your friend. We're going to go ahead and search on message box for C#. A lot of times you will see the MSDN articles come up with a basic idea of how to do it. So we're going to go ahead and use our search, and it'll bring up this help. And you can see here, we just want to create a simple message box, and there's C#. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this code. Particularly when you're learning things, this is great. We're going to copy it, paste it, and then we're going to play around with it to get an idea of how it works. And a lot of coding nowadays is getting to understand how the methods available to you in the library. This is a library. This is part of the built-in library of C#. So we're going to change a couple of these. The first one here, we have if we looked at the parameters for show, we would see that this is the text of the message and then the title bar of the message. So I'm going to go ahead and change these for our message. And then you can see these other two and you're like, what are those? Well, these are other parameters. That's other information that this method, the message show, needs to do its job. And I can change them. You see here, I have the autocomplete, the IntelliSense working in my favor. I can actually see the different values that are available for this. and I can select the one that I want. This is really handy, and really get to know your IntelliSense. It will minimize how many times you have to go search and say, how do I do this, or what's the exact value for this. Definitely become familiar with IntelliSense. Again, let's go ahead and save. So now I have a message handler, which effectively, when the button is clicked, this is what will be called. Again, the main method is what's going to start when I press debug. Now I press hello, and there comes up my message box. There we go. And you can see that the information I used in the parameters, and that is what those extra options that we gave message box show are, changed how the message box works. So let's go ahead. We can double click and it'll bring us back to the method that we created. So we can go ahead and change some of these options, which will change how the message box appears. So let's go ahead and we'll change hello. And again, this is very useful. A useful way to figure out how things work is play around with it. Change the parameters. Now, sometimes you have to know how the parameters will work, what's expected. But in general, you can, and nothing will get hurt by doing this. You can see it has changed the message to high-low. There we go. All right. So, as you can see, we've created a basic project. We've created a form. Actually, the form was auto-generated. We've renamed it. And we've created a message box. We've created a handler for our button click. And that's all for now. I just wanted you to get a basic idea of how to start a project and create a handler.